Welcome to Long Live Baseball. Today on the program, we're going to be talking about playoffs. Playoffs? Are you kidding me? Playoffs?
What are those?
Playoffs? Oh, last place Cardinals. Are they going to make the playoffs? The Cubs, are they going to make the playoffs? We're going to be talking about playoffs. And we're also going to be talking about the MLB All-Star Game. Mike and I have submitted our ballots, and we're going to share those with you today on the program. And we're also going to be talking about good baseball memories. I don't know why I put this on the show sheet, but I was just feeling sentimental, I think.
I like it.
Yeah. And then, of course, Mike's dictionary segment to round out the show. But Mike, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. It's summertime, so you gotta like the summertime. I don't know if that was any good or not over the air, but it's summer. It's baseball season. It's softball season. My daughter's playing some softball. Getting to go to the ballpark. Minor leagues, major leagues. That's good. Good. You?
Not too bad. I mean, the Cardinals certainly aren't helping out my summer at all. And we can kind of talk about.
We can commiserate.
I think naturally, organically, this conversation is going to happen. Maybe once we get done talking about our prospective teams, and where they're at and their position, because entering this season, obviously there were lofty expectations for the St. Louis Cardinals, and there were not lofty expectations for the Chicago Cubs. So the fact that they're right back, the fact that they are fifth and fourth, last and next to last in the NL Central right now, is startling.
A half game separating us.
Yeah, so I think that's got to be a huge win for the Cubs, and I know that's probably not something that you necessarily agree with, because you were of the mind that the Cubs could make the playoffs, and maybe this is a nice transition into that. Mike, talk about your Cubs and where you see them and how they're playing, and do you think that they can make the playoffs still?
Well, yeah. I mean, you asked the question, can the Cubs still make the playoffs? The answer, of course, is yes. There's no reason why the Cubs can't make the playoffs, especially in this division. This division is up for grabs. Did anyone see Cincinnati or Pittsburgh, at the top of the division before the season started? And the fact that they are, Milwaukee, yeah, that was a foregone conclusion. But I think I read somewhere that Milwaukee right now is on pace for 87 wins. I think 87 wins is gonna win this division. If that's the case, and I know we're going to get into this a little bit more in the numbers conversation when you start into it, but if that's the case, then anybody can win this division still. We have all of June, all of July, August, September-ish, right? And plenty of time. They definitely can make the playoffs. And the questions that you asked about that, well, if the answer is yes, then what needs to happen to make that so, right? Well, for the Cubs, it means, for the love of God, start hitting the ball and scoring runs when you have runners in scoring position. We Cubs fans for the last 6 years are so sick and tired of having this conversation, because it seems like it's our Achilles heel. In high leverage situations, hit the ball. It's like we disappear when we have an opportunity. And how do you put a finger on that, right? It almost becomes, I hate to say, a cultural thing, but that's what it starts to feel like. It's like, well, the bases are loaded. We can go to the concession stand now because we know what's going to happen. You start to feel that way. And I don't want to project that onto the Cubs, because there have been some situations, but where we've seen it happen, but we've got to start hitting and scoring some runs because this team is so capable of being a team that can do that. Looking at the stats, the Cubs are the only team that they trail only the Texas Rangers in games in which they have scored 10 or more runs. The Texas Rangers and the Cubs are the top two teams who have scored 10 or more runs in a game this season. The Cubs have done it 8 times. The Rangers have done it 16 times. Double that.
Wow.
That's a whole nother conversation, right? But the Cubs 8 times. So they've shown what they're capable of. They've shown that they can put runs on the board. They can do that. Their propensity for profligate hitting astounds me. Do you like that one? Profligate.
Yeah, good word. I don't know if you did you say it right. I don't even know.
I didn't. I slaughtered it 2 or 3 times. I pronounced it several times correctly in pre-production, but do we have that? Is that a thing that we do?
Do you prepare for this show?
Of course I do. Profligate. There you go. I said it. I was on the spot. Their propensity for profligate hitting astounds me. It just boggles my mind. We do this thing where we hit, we have 23 hits in a game and we waste them all. Sometimes we're hitting the ball and I'm like, hey, save some for the Angels because, we just got swept by the Angels. It'd be nice, We go out against Tampa and we slap the ball all over the field, and then we play the Angels and we get hit, maybe 2. It's kind of crazy, but I guess that's baseball. On the other hand, while the Cubs have scored a lot of runs in quite a few games, they've also scored 2 or fewer runs 21 times in 62 games. That's astounding. And in June, that's 5 of their 7 games in June. They've scored 2 or fewer runs. So while we knew that we were going to have a emphasis on defense this year, when you're only scoring, when you're scoring 2 or fewer runs, there's an issue. And I've heard some conversation around, the Cubs have got to figure out who needs to be playing and who isn't. They send Nick Madrigal to AAA, and he tears it up. They recalled him yesterday, I think, because he was tearing it up. Now, I haven't looked to see how he did in yesterday's ball game. I know Nico Horner had a big hit, but obviously time will tell. But Patrick Wisdom's not hitting the ball. If Nicky Madrigal's going to be the experiment at third base, then move him over there because something's got to be done there. In the big picture, if we're going to make the playoffs, back to that, we've got to hit the ball. We've got to score runs. That seems like, oh, really? Okay. I didn't know you needed to hit the ball and score runs to make the playoffs. But yeah, you do. Our emphasis. Okay, second thing, get healthy. Cody Bellinger, we got to get Cody Bellinger back, right? We've got to get Cody Hoyer on the mound. We've got to, Kyle Hendricks, while he's back on the mound now, he's, can he be the Kyle Hendricks of old? Because there was injury stuff going on there. Getting and staying healthy is a key. Another one of those, I feel like I'm like, oh, really? The listeners are like, oh, no kidding. You got to be healthy. You got to hit the ball and score runs. Well, this game, while it's hard, it's not that hard. These are the things that you need to do. We've got a team that's capable of doing it. And then finally, our Cubs are pitching. I've been talking about pitching since last winter, like how the pitching staff is underrated and all of that. When you look at fan graphs, and I think I'm looking at pitching. Yep. We are 10th in the league with wins above replacement in pitching. That's not bad. I mean, considering Jameson Taillon, I mean, we signed a multi-year contract with a guy that's like 1-7 or something like that, or one.
No, I have the stats pulled up right here. He's 1-4 with a 7.02 ERA. Now that seems high based on the WHIP. The WHIP is 1.54.
Mm-hmm.
So that tells me he's given up a lot of key hits with runners in scoring position.
Right.
But at the same time, that is not good. Jameson Taillon has a lot more upside than that. Jameson Taillon is almost your Steven Matz, he should be doing a lot better based on the talent. Because I always thought he was when in his time with the Pirates, he seemed like a guy with good stuff and
right.
So yeah, that's not good. But to talk about your starting pitching, I mean, God, I'm as a Cardinals fan to have some solidified roles. I'm jealous of this. I mean, look at what Marcus Stroman's doing. We'll talk about the All-Star game later, but if he's not an All-Star with these numbers, 7-4,
if he's not a starter.
Well, I mean, maybe. I honestly haven't looked at all the other starting pitchers from around the league, but a 2.42 ERA, 7-4. He's not like 7.7 strikeouts per 9 is all right. I mean, it's not anything to scream about, but it's I mean, he's been a really good pitcher, and you can definitively say, Marcus Stroman is the ace, right? Or can you say no, Seth? What about Justin Steele? Similar numbers, right? 2.6 in the twos, ERAs in the twos. What I would give for starting pitchers who started multiple games with multiple quality starts. Marcus Stroman, 12 quality starts. Justin Steele, 8 quality starts. And surprise, Drew Smyly, who started 13 games, 5 quality starts, ERA in the 3.5, doing really good things for the Cubs. Those 3 guys, 2 of them surprises, I would say, and maybe not to you, Mike, but to the average Cubs fan, they probably are like, Justin Smyly. We have a guy named Smyly. We don't know who these people are. They probably would recognize Jameson Taillon before they recognize those guys. But those are some good things that are happening for the Cubs right now.
Yeah.
But I think the problem is continually there's just some pieces that you're missing, some auxiliary pieces. And I think the weakest part of this team is honestly the bullpen.
Yeah, and that's the next thing on my list. We've got to solidify the bullpen. I mean, we do have some guys that have some decent numbers coming out of the bullpen. Adbert Alzolay has been, it's been fun to watch him coming out of the bullpen. I think Leiter Jr. had some positive upside, but Julian Merriweather is being talked about as a potential trade chip, which that one's interesting to me. Cubs fans have a love-hate relationship with Michael Fulmer. It's like, oh gosh, you don't know. But yeah, the bullpen, we've got to get a bullpen piece. We've got to find somebody, whether that means picking somebody up or, but now all the talk, and it always astounds me, this kind of thing. Are you seeing anything? This drives me nuts. Like, it's June 10th, and we're talking about, well, looks like the Cubs are going to be selling. June 10th. It's June 10th. We're going to be a selling team. They are, when the Cardinals are a half game behind us, are they talking about selling? Are they talking about, hey, looks like I don't understand the dynamic that leads to that conversation. 2 years in a row, that's what it's been for us. Like, well, is Marcus Stroman going to be? Are we going to re-sign him, or are we going to? Well, we could sell him and we could get some prospects and blah 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 blah. And I suppose it's where we're at as an organization, rebuilding, all that kind of stuff. But that conversation, I'm growing weary of that conversation. Why do you have to be in a perpetual state of selling at this stage in the season? That's what it feels like. And I don't understand it.
Well, just because they're talking about it, I mean, fans are going to fan, right? I mean, just because they're talking about it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to happen. And who knows? I do believe that's where the Cubs are. And I think that they have time, that the trade deadline's not for another month and 3 weeks, right? August 2nd is the trade deadline. So a lot's going to happen in between then and now. But yeah, I think it would be wise because, and this, we talked about this at the top, entering the season, the Cubs, I mean, you thought the team had enough to make the playoffs, but I was obviously skeptical. I thought they'd finish third in the division. I said the Cardinals would win 90 games too. So that tells you what I know about the future and tells you what everybody else knows about what's going to happen. Because I think most people thought the Cardinals would be a lot better.
But hold on a second, Seth. If the Cardinals win 90 games, they're going to win the division.
Oh, of course.
It's still possible.
Of course. Yeah, it's possible. I mean, they'd have to turn it up right away. And when we talk about the Cardinals, I'll talk about why I think that's, why I'm less optimistic than I could have been, because now we have more data. There's some startling trends with the Cardinals, but just to stay focused here on the Cubs, I can't think of what I
Sorry about that.
With it. But no, so what I was saying is at the beginning of the season, the Cubs, this is who the Cubs were, right? They needed some more pieces. And I honestly think that you guys are in a really good spot and you have a real opportunity here in the next year or two with an aging Goldschmidt, with an aging Arenado to lap the Cardinals. If the Cardinals are just going to keep doing Cardinals things like nothing, doing nothing, then that's what's going to happen. And it's going to be so fascinating to see what the Cubs do. Because I think they do have some good pieces. I'm very intrigued by Justin Steele. I'm very intrigued by Hayden Wisniewski. These are typically, and I know Cardinals fans out there are going to listen to me say this, and fear is going to boil up down in their stomach. But the Cubs are doing things that the Cardinals can usually do. The Cubs are finding, they used to call it this devil magic. Like the Cardinals can find these guys that know, like Hayden Wisniewski and Justin Steele. Like Justin Steele, once upon a time, is somebody the Cardinals would have found in their minor league system. That's kind of what Jack Flaherty was. I mean, Jack Flaherty was not this huge prospect, but Jack Flaherty came up and pitched really well in 2019, and we thought, here we go, we've got another ace, and Jack's pitching better, but he needs to be more consistent, and Jack would be the first one to tell you that, I bet. But I think the Cubs are in a really good spot here. I do. I know they're in fourth place. Fourth place, but going forward, there's so much flexibility with what you can do. You could keep Cody Bellinger, or you could trade him away. You have the money to extend Marcus Stroman, which I would freaking do, by the way, because pitching is so hard to find. I would not mess with that. I would see what Stroman wants and work out a deal with them. And because once you have pitching, you need to keep pitching. Okay. Trust me, as a Cardinals fan, it's hard to live without starting pitching. There's so many different ways they can go, and honestly, it terrifies me a little bit.
Yeah, well, there are a couple other like Miguel Amaya. They finally, last show I think I talked about. What are we doing? Let's get Miguel Amaya up.
Yeah,
He's
why
been
not? Why not? Like, get some of these younger guys up here. I mean, if you're gonna be in last place, that's why I thought, well, if the Cardinals are gonna be bad, we might as well give Jordan Walker some time.
right.
Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Isn't that what the Cincinnati Reds have done? I mean, you look at the Cincinnati Reds lineup and you go, who?
Yeah.
They're so young, it's unbelievable, and they're just confident group, and they're playing baseball and having fun. And
Ellie De La Cruz looks good, don't he?
oh my goodness gracious! But for the Cubs, obviously Cody Bellinger, that gives some hope if we can get Cody Bellinger back and he stays healthy and does what he was doing before the injury. If Matt Mervis, we forget that he's young-ish. He's a rookie. And, if he can get going and if things start to click for him, then that will be good things. That can mean good things for the Cubs. I was reading an article. Let me see if I can find it here real quick. It's because I want to give credit where credit is due. Matt Schneider from CBS Sports was talking about some of these guys, and overall, the Cubs rank in the bottom third in batting average, slugging percentage, doubles, and runs scored. Plus, I think they're the second highest strikeout rate in the bigs, if I'm not mistaken. But if Bellinger comes along, Matt Mervis, Miguel Amaya, if Nicky Madrigal can continue, he was 0 for 3, by the way, yesterday. He did walk once, struck out once, but if he can continue what he was doing at AAA and carry that over and with the confidence, because that's where confidence comes, is from repeated success, right? And so, having these guys get hits down in the minors, sometimes that can translate over when they come back to the bigs. So hopefully we'll see that. I know Miles Mastroboni was not the answer. I can tell you that. And that's the option, but yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think the Cubs it sounds so strange to say, they're in a good place. They've got to weather the storm. Right now they're kind of in the midst of a storm. It's a slump. We've talked about we've talked about this in previous shows. It's kind of a collective. What are you going to do when the collective slump happens? Are you going to trust in the guys that you have? Are you going to keep Jordan Walker up in the bigs when he's not hitting so well for a 2-week stint? His numbers are going down. Or are you going to give up on him? Because there is an element of that I think is apparent in both the Cubs and the Cardinals situations right now.
Yeah, and to speak to Jordan Walker, I mean, he's hitting 316 his last 7 days. I mean, in 6 games, hitting over 3 with an OPS, which was the problem, right? The problem was, he's not hitting the ball in the air, whatever. And in the last 7 days with guys who play regularly, Nolan Arenado, his OPS in the last 7 days is over 1, and so is Jordan Walker's. So anyway, is it time to transition over to the Cardinals portion?
Yeah. I mean, talk about, I don't know if you missed my well-placed transitional statement there.
Oh, is that
or
what
not?
we're doing well-placed transitions now? This is a professional show. That's what you're saying.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay. Now that I've messed up Mike's perfect transition, that's my thing. That's honestly my thing, is to just muck it up as much as possible, because now I have to talk about the Cardinals, right? And the Cardinals are in last place in the Central Division, and the question is, can the St. Louis Cardinals still make the playoffs? And I know some of our viewers, our listeners, are, and there's some angry Cardinals fans out there, and I think fans have a right to be angry, but the answer is obviously yes, they still can. Because have you looked at the Central Division lately? Right? I mean, the Central Division is wide open. And the Cardinals, and we were talking about this before the show, their expected record should be closer to 500. In fact, their Pythagorean record should be 500. It should be their run differential is actually positive, and they're 10 games below 500. That tells me that they're losing a lot of close games, right? So that's no excuse. They still should be, winning these games, but that means that there's a lot more upside. They should be doing a lot better than they are. And the numbers, I think, bear that out, because offensively, this team is still really good, and think of all that's gone wrong. I mean, Contreras has not been good. Walker has not been to this point, and I know he's a rookie, but to this point, they've had to send him down, and now he's back up and he's doing better. Arenado's gone through stretches where you wonder if he's ever going to figure it out, and he's had a better week this week. Thank God for Paul Goldschmidt. I mean, where would this team be without Paul Goldschmidt and that consistency offensively? But this team's still really good. Number 9 in wins above replacement offensively, number 7 in WRC plus. They're so in average, number 14 in average in the big leagues, but number 8 in slugging percentage. So top 10 in a lot of key metrics. And we have this guy on our team, Mike, who looks like a superstar, and I'm ticked off that I couldn't vote for him in the All-Star game. I typed in his name and I couldn't find him anywhere, and that's Nolan Gorman. What's going on with Nolan Gorman? Why can't we vote for him in the All-Star game? What? I couldn't find him. What's happening?
Yeah. Well,
anyway, because he was gonna be my DH, and when we talk about that, I'm going to write in Nolan Gorman because I didn't know you'd have to write in a player who's hitting 264 with 15 home runs and 46 RBIs, who's a left-handed hitter who can play second base, he can play third base, and he's been our primary DH for the most part. But this is a complete surprise, right? I was a big Nolan Gorman fan, but I wasn't expecting this from him. He's been arguably our best offensive player on a team with Arenado, Goldschmidt, and Contreras. So those big four, and Contreras is going to figure it out. Like, Contreras is too good of a player not to figure it out offensively. He's had a bad first 60 or so games with the Cardinals, but he's going to figure it out. So if Contreras can get back on track, Arenado can be more consistent, which Arenado's always been a streaky hitter anyway. I mean, that's kind of the name, but his numbers are really good. This is wait for it, a fearsome foursome, Mike, with Goldschmidt, Gorman, Arenado, and Contreras, and then potentially Jordan Walker. With the upside of Jordan Walker, I love Lars Nootbaar. We get Dylan Carlson back, who doesn't have to be a focal point of the offense anymore. He can just be Dylan Carlson. And then there's guys, like Brendan Donovan, Tommy Edman, and Paul DeYoung, I think is back to just being, who Paul DeYoung is, who's a really streaky hitter in his own right. But this team is still offensively really good. The starting pitching, and I can't help but like a player like Brendan Donovan. I think he's a really gritty player, and I know the numbers aren't great this year, but I just like the way he plays, and I think he's a perfect Cardinal, but I digress from that. The starting pitching too has actually been a lot better. And when we started talking about the Cardinals, they were like 24th, 25th to start the year in team ERA, and now they're up to number 19. And I know that doesn't seem like a big leap, but that's a big leap. Okay. They actually have guys with records that look good. Like Miles Michaelis has a 3.74 ERA. It's not in the 4s anymore. Montgomery is down in the 3s, 3.88 ERA with a decent whip. And they're not striking out anybody. They're number 24 in strikeouts per game, which, by the way, the Cubs are number 25 in Ks per game. So both the Cardinals and the Cubs, their starting rotations don't strike out anyone, which is a problem, which is why I keep saying the Cardinals need a guy like that in their rotation. But the Cardinals starting pitching has been better. And a stat that really surprised me is I keep hearing from fans all over Twitter, all over talk show radios, is I'm so sick of the Cardinals. They go 5 innings and then it's the bullpen. And that's putting a lot of strain on the bullpen. Heck, I've even said it, right? You need starting pitching to go deeper into games. What blew my mind is the Cardinals actually ranked number 9 in Major League Baseball amongst starting pitchers in innings pitched. So that tells me that this is a problem across baseball. Starting pitchers are not going deep into games anymore. They're just not.
It's not a thing.
It's not.
Fergie Jenkins tweeted, "The complete game is dead." And the next day, Marcus Stroman threw a complete game.
Of course he did. Fergie knows. I'm sure Fergie Jenkins knows if he puts that out into the universe with the way baseball is, that something like that's going to happen, obviously. Yeah. And I'm sure he knew it. And maybe even as soon as he said it, it's like, oh, Stroman's on the mound today. Oh boy, we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, it's not a thing anymore, Mike. Like,
to your point, I mean, I mean, we're throwing 6 or 7 guys, and and I've always said, I'm a proponent of, listen, you want the pitch clock, the pitch clock is one thing. How about you limit the number of, and they've kind of done that to a sense in terms of relief pitchers have to face 3 batters or something like that, so there's a sense of that, but yeah, I don't know. It's fun to see complete games. It's fun to see that.
Yeah, no, I trust me, I miss it. Adam Wainwright used to go real deep into games. Even last year, I remember being at a ball game where Adam Wainwright had a no-hitter going into the 7th inning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is Adam Wainwright, and this year it's, oh boy, this is not it's not been so good for Adam Wainwright to this point. But like I said, so this is a problem in baseball with the starting pitching. And, the Cardinals' 3 best pitchers are probably Michaelis Montgomery, and Jack Flaherty. But then once you get past that, Steven Matz, obviously it's not working out with Steven Matz. Jake Woodford, they just activated him today. We'll see if they bring him up. Adam Wainwright has been terrible. ERA close to 6 in his 6 games started. It's not like he's getting unlucky. I know that's a thing that people are saying, but he doesn't have an elite I mean, his fastball, Mike, is, I mean, some high schoolers could throw faster than Adam Wainwright's throwing right now. It's really sad, and part of me kind of don't get me wrong, I'm holding out hope that he can turn it around, because after all, this is Adam Wainwright. I love Adam Wainwright. I mean, he's given us so many memories over the years being a Cardinals fan, and he's been just the perfect Cardinal. But part of me wishes he would have just retired last year. And I know he's chasing the 200 wins, but if they booted Steven Matz out of the rotation, and Steven Matz, his numbers are not good, but I mean, Matz has started 10 games and his ERA was not as bad as Wainwright. So I know it's Adam Wainwright. I know what he's done for this organization, second to none, but that's going to get awkward here real soon, if it's not awkward already, with in the locker room, because he's not helping this team win. I'm sorry. And he needs to be better if they're going to keep trotting him out there every 5th day. So that's a problem with this team. And I guess just to talk real briefly about the bullpen's been all right. It's about average, number 11 and wins above replacement, number 14 in ERA. I know there's been a lot of blown saves, but there's a lot of talent in that bullpen, because the bullpen does something the starting pitching doesn't do, which is strike people out. Like Helsley, say what you want to about the blown saves, but I think he has the potential to be the best closer in baseball. I really do. Watching Genesis Cabrera pitch is going to put me in an early grave, because I'm going to have a heart attack watching him every time, but he strikes people out. So the same goes with Hicks. Hicks has an amazing strikeout rate. So the bullpen has pieces. So I feel like I keep saying this, and to transition into what needs to happen if the Cardinals are going to make the playoffs, they have to figure out some of these pieces, right? They have to figure out what's the outfield going to look like, because the outfield to this point has not been very good. Okay. They need to figure out who's playing in the outfield. And my suspicion is they would like it to be Carlson, Newt Barr, and Jordan Walker. That's what I think they would want. So that means you've got some questions to answer. What are you going to do with Tyler O'Neill? I think that's maybe the foremost question on every Cardinals fan mind, because he's had a back injury for about a month now. I looked this up, like this is just, I don't know, typical Cardinals, but I let's see. I had it pulled up, but let's just call it like a month. May 5th. There we go. May 5th. Tyler O'Neill is put on the 10-day IL. What's today, Mike? Is it
June 10th?
June 10th, and it's we still don't know what's going on with Tyler O'Neill, right?
He's coming back.
Is he?
Yeah, he's starting a rehab start. He's going to have a rehab assignment. Just saw it in the news yesterday.
Okay, so he's finally on the path to coming back to the Cardinals. So what do you do with Tyler O'Neill? What do you do with guys like Alec Burleson and Juan Yepez? Because they defensively in the outfield, they're not very good. Okay, and they're not giving you much offensively recently either. So you really need, dare I say, you really need Tyler O'Neill back. But I don't know if he's going to be happy with this. But just as a reserve player, I mean, Tyler O'Neill as a reserve would be really, really good. But I don't know if he's going to go for that, because once upon a time he finished 8th in the MVP voting or something like that, that 1 year he had. So that they're going to need to figure out their outfield, number one, and they're going to have to make a trade. I know we keep saying this over and over and over. Oh, I forgot to mention one thing. The most startling thing about the Cardinals, before I go any farther, is their defense. Their defense has just tanked, and there are metrics that back this up. The Cardinals are number 26 in Major League Baseball in defensive runs saved, according to the Fielding Bible, which everybody should go check out the Fielding Bible. It's amazing. They were tied for number 4 in Major League Baseball last year, and I don't know if this has much to do with the shift or not, because I've heard this argument from multiple news sources is the Cardinals can't shift anymore. So if you have starting pitchers who aren't striking people out, you need to position your defense to where hitters are going to hit the ball, because if the hitters are going to hit the ball. And since the Cardinals can't do that, they're one of the most affected teams because of that. So I think it makes a lot of sense. But still, I think this outfield defensively has not been very good. And there are some players like Tommy Edman who have not played very well defensively. And then, Nolan Arenado's had some uncharacteristic plays as well. So they've just not been very good, but I think they can get better, because there's definitely talent defensively. But anyway, to go back to what I was saying earlier is, the Cardinals need to fix their outfield. They need a starting pitcher. They probably need to trade O'Neill and some prospects for a starting pitcher. But, they are 10 games below 500, Mike. And I wonder, I really do. I know Mozeliak said that they're not going to be sellers at the trade deadline, but I wonder if the Cardinals, this next month is a big month for the St. Louis Cardinals. If they can get back on track, if they can get closer to 500, I'm not saying that they have to make up all the ground, but if they can get within 4 games, maybe 5 games of the NL Central lead, I think that potentially they could make a move. But if they stay around where they are, and it's the All-Star break, or it's the trade deadline, and they're still 10 games out, or they're in last place or whatever, I really wonder if Paul Goldschmidt's available, if Nolan Arenado's available. I really doubt it. I just want to say this right now. I really doubt it, especially Goldschmidt, because I feel like Goldschmidt is the perfect Cardinal, and the Cardinals have a history of once they identify their guys, they hold on them. They hold on to them forever. I mean, just look at what's going on with Wainwright right now, and Yachty towards the end too. Is they just hang on for dear life. And Arenado's contract is too good. I mean, that contract. Is it the most valuable contract in all of baseball? I don't know. I don't know. It's pretty valuable with how many years are on that thing. So those are two valuable assets that they would have to get a lot for. And so I really doubt if they would trade those players. But as far as like a Jordan Montgomery, who I wouldn't trade away because he's one of your better pitchers. And like I said to you, if you have good pitching, I wouldn't trade it away. He's on an expiring contract. Flaherty's on an expiring contract. Are those two guys that you think about trading away to a team that's trying to make a push because starting pitching is so rare to find these days? I mean, what do you do if you're the Cardinals? Because it's not like I keep saying they need to trade for an ace. There aren't too many aces on the market,
No.
So it's going to be fascinating to see what they do. And it really all depends on what the next month of the season looks like for them leading up to the trade deadline, because I could easily see the Cardinals doing what the Cardinals do. And that's kind of, I honestly think if they keep on losing, if they keep on being like underperforming the way they've been underperforming, the most likely option might just be that they stand pat, that they don't do anything. Like maybe they make a minor move. I mean, look at what they've done the last couple of trade deadlines. I mean, I guess Montgomery is a bigger deal. I mean, the biggest trade they've made at the trade deadline, but that's kind of the history of the Cardinals. They don't make a big move at the trade deadline.
Right.
So that's, I think, the most likely outcome, as much as that might frustrate Cardinals fans. And that doesn't really fall in line with them making a big playoff push, but we'll see. I know there's a lot more heat on Mozeliak now than there ever has been because of how this starting rotation has performed to this point, and a lot of the other things. I mean, we could go through the whole timeline of how weird the season's been, and I've chronicled that on this show in detail, starting with the Tyler O'Neill situation, sending Jordan Walker down. Willson Contreras, is he a catcher? One day he is, one day he's not. It's like the Willson Contreras Hokey Pokey catcher. You put him in at catcher, then you take him out, then you put him back in, and then you take him out. This is the Willson Contreras Hokey Pokey catcher starting. Is he starting or is he not? Who knows?
No way. Okay.
Who knows? Nobody knows. Mozeliak doesn't know. No one knows. So yeah, it's bizarre. It's anyway. So the Cardinals, they have pieces. To summarize, they have the talent. They have guys in the bullpen that drive you nuts, like Cabrera, Hicks. I think Helsley's really good. The outfield is as weird as it's been. There's so much talent there. Walker, Nootbaar, Carlson are the three. If Tyler O'Neill comes back and he's cool being a bench player, I doubt it. Mike's laughing at me. But the starting pitching is obviously a problem. The offense is good. So there are pieces here. This is a talented team. Oh, no. What did I do?
No, it's not you. You know what I just came to the realization of?
Oh, no. What?
You and I are talking about the same team. We're saying this. I don't even know why these listeners are listening to us. We're saying the same thing. These teams have pieces. They have pieces. We have pieces to be potentially great, but we're just not putting it together. This is the story, folks. Signing off now. I mean, seriously, we both have teams that are in the bottom of the division that should be at the top of the division based on the pieces that they have, if they could just put it together. I mean, seriously,
they could just pull their head out of their proverbial butt.
Right. To summarize, both of our teams are that way. By the way, I was wrong on the Tyler O'Neill thing. I don't know if that was some kind of nightmare that I had last night. I think that Tyler O'Neill is going to be a trade chip.
Yeah, I think the best thing they could do with Tyler O'Neill is they need to get him back on the team as soon as possible. because he needs to hit a couple home runs so he can be at least a little bit valuable to the team. Because right now, I mean, what's his value? What could you get? What are you getting for Tyler O'Neill? I don't know if you're getting much of anything for Tyler O'Neill right now. And that was not the case at the beginning of the season. I think at the beginning of the season, I was saying, oh man, Tyler O'Neill's got, I mean, look at the guy. I mean, he's athletic, he's quick, he's got power. I mean, he's good defensively in left field.
He has back issues.
And ironically, he wasn't running hard that one time, supposedly because he was trying to keep himself healthy. And maybe you agree with this, Mike, and maybe we're going off the rails here, but my coaches in high school, my athletic experience, Mike, they always told me you need to be going 100% all the time. And that's honestly the best way to avoid injury. If you're thinking about getting injured, then you're going to get injured.
Yeah. I mean, I get you there, but that's also high school, not 27, 28, 41 in the case of Adam Wainwright.
Mr. AARP. He's right. He's him and Yachty and Albert all have the same membership card, right?
Yeah. You see Albert's going to work for the commissioner's office?
Well, how many people are in that commissioner's office? That's what
what.
Mike Schilt was in there. Your boy, your guy, the Cubs guys working for him. How many guys does he need working for him? What is he doing?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he does nothing apparently other than, hey, how can I mess with baseball? But you know, I don't know. No, it's interesting to see that. But yeah, so O'Neill, you know, it's going to be well. Isn't Jordan Walker? I mean, isn't he the Tyler O'Neill replacement? I mean,
kind of. I mean, he's the number one prospect in all of baseball. I mean, it's probably between him and O'Neill for the start. I mean, they're going to put Walker and right, Carlson in left, or Carlson in center rather, and Nootbaar in left. That's probably how it's going to shake out. And then it's really, like I said, there's a lot of awkwardness on this team right now. I brought up Wainwright. Oh boy, what are you going to do? It's awkward. What if Tyler O'Neill hit once upon a time, he hit 30 home runs. He comes back to the big leagues. Oh, guess what, buddy? You're not a starting player anymore. You're on the, you're on the bench. It's a lot for Ollie Marmol to handle. And I don't quite know if he's, I don't know. It's tough. Like, in fairness, I know a lot of people are crushing him right now, and a lot of it's for good reason because some of the decisions he's made in game have been questionable. But I think he's in a really tough spot. I think management's put him in a tough spot by bringing, Wainwright back. For what they brought him back for. $17.5 million to bring back Wainwright was, in hindsight, ridiculous. And I know that the contract isn't just that cut and dry. I think there are some incentives and things he's got to hit to get that number, but still, that was a little crazy when this is a win now team and Adam Wainwright's not helping you win right now.
Right.
It's a little crazy when Sean Murphy, you had the potential to trade for him and give, let's face it, a lot more than the Braves could have given for him. And you decided not to do that. That's on management. You had an opportunity to bring back Jose Quintana, add some depth to your starting rotation, and you didn't do anything about that. That's on management. I mean, Ollie Marmol's dealing with it right now, but John Mozeliak should be fired. Like, this is crazy. Like, I know I should be, like, I keep saying it. Mo needs to go. We get the picket signs out, but this guy has, outside of trading for Goldschmidt and Arenado, which and doing whatever kind of thing he had to do to get Arenado to sign that, to opt in, which is crazy. I still can't believe it. Like, I still am kind of in disbelief.
How'd that happen?
Outside of those two things, you look at every single, like, I could go down the list, and it's not just this offseason. It's signing Andrew Miller. It's signing Mike Leake. It's trading for Marcell Ozuna. There we go. Scratch it off your bingo cards. Marcell Ozuna trade. Somebody's going to be not happy with me. Brett Cecil. It's a lot of these things where you need to make moves to enhance your team, to make them a World Series contender and continually. And I think it's a combined effort, front office and ownership. That ownership is saying, well, we can't spend this much money on a top of the line starter, but you can get Dexter Fowler if you want. You can't get Willson Contreras if you want. We won't spend a ton of money, but we'll spend some money to make it look like we're being competitive. We won't really push our chips all in. I mean, at this point with this team, with what they needed, when they needed it, I mean, the time, honestly, and I know I just got done with a segment where I said the Cardinals can still make the playoffs, and I still think they can, and I still think this team's really good. But honestly, the time might have passed. The opportunities that you had might have passed already. I hope I'm wrong, but the opportunity to bring in a Max Scherzer, I know I say it every show, the opportunity to bring in a Verlander, the opportunity to bring in a guy who's going to be a big difference maker for you in the starting rotation, a guy that you really needed that would have just set things just right in your rotation, not bringing back Adam Wainwright. I'm sorry. Like, for $17.5 million, like, you could have spent that money elsewhere to help your win now team win now. And it's not just this guy with a burger phone in the dugout saying, oh, well, I'm getting a lot of blue pits off of me. Well, Adam, you're not pitching well. I'm sorry. Like, you're not helping this team win. I love you, but the Cardinals at times they live on their past, and it feels really like this is a failure, not on Ollie Marmol, because that's where this conversation started, but it's a failure on ownership and Mozeliak. And if these are Mozeliak's decisions, then it might be time for a new face of the Cardinals front office.
Interesting. I just read an article yesterday in which I think it was CBS Sports. The Cubs are in the state that they're at. Basically, I'm obviously paraphrasing. Is Jed Hoyer to blame? And so that talk is also starting in Chicagoland. Like, there's always that look. Okay, who can we put this on, right? Now, a couple of days ago, Hoyer did kind of give some clarity in terms of what are the Cubs going to be looking to do in the next, like, as far as, are they going to be a selling team or whatever? And I think what his quote was something along the lines of end of July is when we'll find out. He said something along like, hey, we had a really good month. We've had a really bad month so far. We've got to put some wins together. I mean, that's going to dictate what's going to happen, and it's going to be end of July before we make those decisions. So interesting that, and that, I guess this is the kind of talk that you get when you have two teams who are in the bottom of the division, right? I mean, we're both losing and nobody's content, like players included, right? I mean, I can't imagine how frustrating it must be for Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, for Paul DeYoung, for these guys that, I mean, they know that they're good baseball players, and they're not winning games,
Mm-hmm.
And so there's so much to look at in regards to that. What is it? Chemistry? Is it, we've talked about all that in the past as well, but hopefully, again, going back to the Cubs have got, for us, if the Cubs have got the talent, they've got the pieces in there, add a few here at the end, maybe they make a run. It is the National League Central, so I don't know how much that equates into the formula for Jed. And, I mean, just how do we make these decisions moving forward, right? Like, what are we going to do? Are we adding pieces? Or are we subtracting pieces? Listen, I'm glad I'm not in their seat at some level.
Well, I think the big difference between the Cubs and the Cardinals is the expectations heading into the season. And maybe we should have tempered our expectations for the Cardinals based on who their starting pitching was. I mean, because the Cardinals, the two things that you need to do to win baseball games, and it's true in every sport. What are they, Mike?
Pitch and hit.
Well, pitching, I was going to say pitching and defense. pitching
Okay.
and defense. And
Okay.
the Cardinals are not pitching well, and they're not playing good defense anymore. So that's kind of, if you want to point to a problem, that's a big problem, right?
Yeah.
But entering the season, the Cubs really didn't have the expectations that the Cardinals had. So I think this season is, while you guys are still at the bottom of the division, you really need to figure out what you have in some of these players. What do you have in I can't think of his name right now, the first baseman. Like, what's he going to be to Matt Mervis? What's Morel? Who's Morel going to be for this team going forward?
Interestingly enough, I'm going to piggyback off of that. Several weeks ago on the show, I said something about, hey, why aren't we trying Christopher Morel at first base? He potentially could be our first baseman. And I read an article just recently about, could Morel be the answer at first base? I don't know if someone's listening to our show or what the deal is, but anyway.
And then I made fun of you guys because has Mike Tauchman been playing a lot lately? I mean, what are we doing with Mike Tauchman? What are we doing with Miles Mastroboni? What are we doing with Tucker Barnhart? Like, get those guys out of here. Like, we know who these people are. What the Cubs need to be doing is they need to be playing Miguel Amaya, and they need to be playing Christopher Morel, and they need to be playing their younger players, like, to see what they have. I mean, they need to potentially bring up some people from AAA to see what they have. If this is the route that they're going to go, you need to pick a direction. And I think they're going in the right direction, but some of the roster moves have been very strange to me, and I think strange to you too. So I think, like I said, I think the Cubs, they're in a decent spot with some of the talent they have. I think Nico Horner's a good player. I think Dansby Swanson is going to be a pillar of this franchise. I think he's good. I think Seiya Suzuki, there's something there. I've always been a big fan of Ian Happ. I feel like he's killed the Cardinals over the years. So you've got some guys, and then Cody Bellinger. What are you going to do with Cody Bellinger? Because he's been decent to this point. He's not quite, MVP Cody Bellinger, but you weren't really expecting that from him, and he's been hurt. So anyway, so what I'm saying here, Mike, is I think you're not in half too bad a shape. I mean, you just need another year. Maybe you make a move at the deadline. Maybe you trade Cody Bellinger. Maybe you trade one of those. Maybe you do trade Stroman, even though I don't think you should. Maybe you trade somebody and get more prospects and just keep building this thing the right way, because I think that is how you lap the Cardinals, and then that's how you become eventually the Los Angeles Dodgers, who just seem to be a factory of producing young talent and just being good every single year. There's no reason the Cubs can't do that. There's no reason the Cardinals can't do that. And I think the Cubs are moving in a good direction.
Yeah. So just to speak to some of the players that you talked about that maybe I hadn't mentioned yet. First of all, I owe Tauchman an apology. I was ripping him up and down a couple shows ago, and then I started looking at his numbers, and he was one of the guys that in this stretch has been hitting the ball well and doing things. I mean, he's batting 260. He's got an OPS of if my eyes were working, I think it's 677. Yeah, 677. Seiya Suzuki, I've been surprised that his numbers have been way up. Like he's been one of the most productive Cubs, I think. I'm not looking at the numbers right now, but he has been being productive. I was surprised by the numbers that I saw from him. He's batting 278 with an 817 OPS. So, and I'm not, you're the data analytics guy. You're the Moneyball guy of this show. I'm the guy that's like, I'm the old Clint Eastwood going out and scouting guys, and I think I see something in him, of this show. So,
cool. I see how you conveniently compared yourself to Clint Eastwood and me to some stat nerd. But go ahead.
Well, yeah. I think I'm pretty comparable with Clint Eastwood.
So you're Brad Pitt and I'm Jonah Hill. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, even though that's both Moneyball, but anyway, go ahead.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm not necessarily Brad Pitt either. Not quite that slick. But Clint Eastwood, yeah, I could sit out on my front porch and yell at people. Grass off my lawn, I think Clint Eastwood does that in a couple of his movies, doesn't he?
Yeah, Gran Torino, what a movie.
Oh yeah, there you go. That's a good one. So yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you. It's just, it's finding the pieces, the things that are hurting us right now. Like you mentioned Tucker Barnhart. We can't keep a guy who's batting at 162. I don't care how good his defense is and how good his catching is. And I'm hats off, tip of the cap to Marcus Stroman and the pitchers that are saying, they love the guy and, he calls great games and all that kind of stuff. And he did have a pretty key hit last night, I guess, against the Angel. Barnhart did. So, but one hit amongst how many games we play, I mean, it's just not enough. We've got to have more production. Now, when you look at the catchers in the All-Star ballot, which is probably where we're going next, it's interesting to look at the guys on the All-Star ballot who are catching. Yeah. They're all batting like 250 something or 260 something. And by the way, you brought up, why can't I vote for a guy like who?
Nolan Gorman.
Yeah, listen, you can't vote for Nolan Gorman, but you know who you can vote for?
Who?
You can vote for Joey Votto.
Oh my God.
Who has absolutely no stats. Did you look at the ballot? He has no stats. I don't think has Joey Votto played this year? He's on a rehab assignment. Yeah, how did he end up on the ballot?
I don't know, man. How is Alec Burleson on the ballot and
name alone? I want to know how they established the ballot.
Alec Burleson's not a name though. Like I see Christopher Morel's on the ballot. Why is Nolan Gorman not on the ballot?
I want to know, and maybe we could probably find this out, or maybe one of our listeners knows. How do they establish the first ballot? Like, how do they establish the names that are going to be on the ballot? Because when we come into it and we vote, I think we might have looked at this last year. The players might have something to say about it. And then they have a committee that gets together. Does that sound familiar? I feel like the players and a committee has something to do with the players that are first placed on the ballot, and then the fans come into it, I think. And that could be why Joey Votto ends up on the ballot, because, players want to recognize players, right? I mean, that, and so I think that's a piece. It's almost like it's a current day Hall of Fame type thing, like who are the guys that are our current day potential, Hall of Famers? Like, so anyway, you can put Votto on there, but you can't put Gorman on there. So what about your Hall of Fame ballot? We're going to talk about that.
We're talking Hall of Fame now?
Or not Hall of Fame. I'm sorry. All-Star ballot. Who do you have on your All-Star ballot, Seth?
All right. I'm torn. We can vote for Paul DeYoung at short. Anyway, whatever.
You were singing his praises not that long ago. What are you talking about?
I know, but he said, I can sing somebody's praises. That doesn't mean that I think that they're an all-star, Mike.
All right.
All right. So the national, do we want to, I know I said just National League, but we could do both. So for the National League, it's kind of like, for me anyway, it's the Atlanta Braves team, basically. Mm-hmm. Because I have, let's see, I just changed one, but I had 4 Atlanta Braves because I had Arcia at shortstop, but I changed that.
What'd you change it to?
Perdomo from Arizona, because I think he's a really exciting player, and I was like, there's too many. Honestly, and his numbers are a little better, but it was a toss up. But so starting at first base, and I don't know if you want to go back and forth. Let's start.
Yeah, let's go back and forth because I think that'll be interesting.
Okay, so my first baseman in the National League, and I think this is a no doubter. He's one of my favorite players in all of baseball. Is Freddie Freeman. He's hitting. In today's baseball, if there's a player hitting over 330, I mean, 12 home runs, an OPS of 983. This guy's a stud, and he deserves to be the starting first baseman in the National League. I know that, as Paul Goldschmidt was there, his numbers aren't as good. Pete Alonso has hit 22 home runs. I get it, but is that like the average and just the all-around player that Freddie Freeman is? He's the best first baseman this year in all of baseball, and yeah, he deserves to be in the National League starting lineup.
Now, I've got to go back just for a second, because one of the things that I want to speak to is the fact that how this show worked. You text me last night at about 11:30 or midnight.
Was it that late?
Well, I don't know. I feel like it was. Like we were like, when are we going to do the show? And sometimes, it's like there's things going on, and you text me at 11:14 yesterday, and you said, broadcast is created. See you tomorrow. Have your all-star ballot for National League only ready.
I
see you brought up a comment here about the conversation we were having earlier. Yeah, it's all about the name. That's Tate's right. I mean, if they can be on MLB The Show, they can be on the all-star ballot, right?
Yeah. Anyway, what did you have a point to what you were saying?
Yeah. So I mean, you text me at that hour, and so I thought, I'm going to bed. I can't believe you text me at 11:14. I'm trying to get some sleep. Sleep is my superpower, and you are trying to keep me awake by enticing me to vote for my all-stars. And so this morning, when I woke up at 6:00 in the morning, I got out the ballot and I started the voting process. Now, what's the point that I'm making here? We both voted separately. We have had no conversation. There's been no collaboration. There's been no, anything like that. I also picked Freddie Freeman for my all-star ballot at first base for the National League. Freddie Freeman is the best first baseman in all of baseball. Maybe one of the best first basemen ever to play the game.
I'm right. Yeah, I couldn't agree. Like I love Freddie. Freddie Freeman is the man. Like he
is a baseball player.
Yeah, I love that dude. All right, second base. I think we might have had the same vote here because I know your affinity for this player. He's the only player in if this is correct, and I think it is because I've read some news reports about it. He's hitting 400.
He is.
He's hitting 400 in today's baseball after 60 games. The last guy that I remember to do that, do you remember Todd Helton?
Yep,
that's the last guy that I can remember who did that. Luis Arraez is the no doubt about it starting second baseman for the National League because he's hitting 400.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I would take, I went back and forth for a minute because Nico Horner's on the ballot. And I went back and forth.
Oh, come on.
Hold on. No. Hear me out. I went back and forth a little bit in that regard because of fandom. But the bottom line is Luis Arraez is batting 400. I took him and beat the streak yesterday. And the guy just keeps hitting the ball. I took him again today in my beat the streak pick. I pick him a lot. I probably have the numbers in terms of how often I pick him. But the bottom line with, like you said, Luis Arraez, I cannot believe the Minnesota Twins traded him. I mean, there's that piece of me that's like, here's this young guy, and I know they're building a team, and there's all the things that go into making these decisions. But that guy is a franchise player. Luis Arraez is a franchise player, without question, the guy that starts at second base in the National League. Now, here's my issue with taking him for beat the streak. Read an article just this morning when I was making my picks. Teams are trying to decide how do they get around Luis Arraez. That's going to be an interesting dynamic in the coming days, especially for beat the streak people who play that, because how are people just going to start pitching around them? Can they start pitching around them? How do they get, all those kinds of questions start to come in play as well. Great player.
So if you remember, I thought it was a good deal for the Twins because they're getting a starting pitcher, and I typically always err on the side of the starting pitcher. But you're right, because this season in 13 games started, Pablo Lopez is 3-3 with an ERA over 4. Yeah, he struck out 92 people, and his whip's good. But I would say that Luis Orez, if you're making me choose, if I would rather have Pablo Lopez or Luis Orez, I think it's pretty obvious. I want Luis Orez. All right. Shortstop. Is that where we're on? No. Third base is how they do it.
Yep.
And this is my first Atlanta Brave, and this is going to be Austin Riley. And I know Arenado's sitting there, and he might have the best counting stats, and maybe I should take Arenado just because I'm a Cardinals fan. But I think Austin Riley has put together a more consistent season, and I don't think Austin Riley's a better player than Arenado, but Arenado, like I said, sometimes numbers can lie to you, and those counting stats for Arenado, I think, are a bit misleading because if you've been watching the Cardinals, you know that he's gone through stretches where he's just been lost at the plate, and then he's gone through stretches where he's amazing. Okay, I really he needs to be more consistent for me, and that's why I choose Austin Riley over Nolan Arenado.
And I too pick Austin Riley, and here's why. The Atlanta Braves are 39-24 with a .619 win percentage. They've won 6 in a row. They're 7-3 in their last 10. They're in first place in their division. That plays into the decision for me. I picked the same guy, Austin Riley.
Yeah, and I'm gonna switch back. I can't make up my mind at shortstop, but just because I want the Braves. The Braves are like my new, if I wasn't the Braves are such a good organization because they actually do what the Cardinals don't do. They identify a need and they go attack it. They identified catcher as a need and they went and got it. They realize their time is now. They realize they're the best team in the National League. Because they have a legitimate superstar. I mean, you could argue superstars all over the place, but they identify who they want and they go get them. And Orlando Arcia, I'm just going to put him at shortstop because he's sitting at over 300. OPS is good, 5 home runs. I know he doesn't have the RBIs, but he's been playing really well. So yeah, I'm gonna go Orlando Arcia at shortstop.
Now this for my vote on this one's going to sound funny, and I agree with you about the Braves. Without question, one of the best organizations, went out like you said, and got a catcher when they needed him. But who else do they have catching? The Braves.
That's a good question.
Hey, take a look at the All-Star ballot, because I'm pretty sure, and I could be wrong here. I'm trying to find.
Well, they have Sean Murphy.
Yep, they have Sean Murphy, and I thought that there was another catcher. Oh,
Arnaud. Is it Arnaud?
Yeah. I thought he was on the ballot, but maybe he's on for some other reason. Anyway, yeah, absolutely, Sean. So, yeah, with the Braves. But going back to shortstop, for me, kind of an unusual pick at shortstop. Looking at the numbers, I was surprised by this, and because he's a little bit Matt McLain for the Cincinnati Reds.
Okay.
Matt McLain is batting .350 with a .934 OPS, which that one kind of surprised me. I like Matt McLain because who knows who Matt McLain is? He's on the All-Star ballot. Players must look up to him or look to him or think that he's a pretty good ball player. When I looked at purely the numbers, and that's the only thing I took into account when I made that decision, because I don't know I've watched him play, but I don't think he's going to be on the cover of MLB The Show.
Yeah, he's also a fellow. I mean, this guy. I mean, you might not recognize him on the street. He's 5'8", 180 pounds. He's 23 years old. He's only played in 20 games. This is the distinction that you have to think about. He's only played in 23 games, 109 plate appearances. So I don't know if that's, you have to consider that. But his OPS plus though, in those 23 games is 145. 100 is the average. So his OPS 934 this year. That's really good. I know it's only that. I'm both agreeing with you and kind of like, backing you up at the same, or not agreeing with you at the same time.
No, I hear you.
But yeah, it's an impressive 109 at bats for sure. So, and he's 5'8", 180 pounds. He's a fellow short man like myself. Well, 5'8" short. Is 5'8" short?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
No, it's probably average. 5'8", 5'10", for a male.
All right.
But Matt McLain's a rookie. I mean, he's a rookie. So, okay, he's only played in 20 games, but for a rookie to have those kind of numbers in the first 20 games in his MLB career, there's definitely some potential there, obviously. And I think he gets the nod right now. I mean, what do you base your all-star on? Like, is the all-star thing, should all-star selection be an annual event based on where they are in the season when the balloting comes out? Or should it be based on their entire history throughout the game? See, to me, I think I want to look at guys who this year are impressing up to this point. That's who I'm looking at. And he's definitely one that is doing that.
Okay. I mean, yeah. I mean, I agree with you because when we get to the outfield, I'll show you why. Because I mean, I think I chose like one superstar, but I just chose you got to choose the people who are having the best season, and that's pretty obvious for me at catcher. It's got to be Sean Murphy at catcher for me. This is a guy the Cardinals is another interesting. They were very interested in this guy apparently and didn't want to give up any of their countless prospects to go get him. And apparently I've said it before on the show, they would have had to give up half their team to get Sean Murphy, but then Atlanta trades for him for like half of what the Cardinals were supposedly supposed to get, like supposedly what the Athletics were asking for. Anyway, I digress. But it's obviously Sean Murphy. He's hitting 288, OPS 940, 12 home runs, 42 RBIs from a catcher. I mean, come on. It's got to be Sean Murphy.
Guess who the catcher on my National League ballot, my selection is? The guy that's on my fantasy team. Check it off your bingo cards, folks. Here it is. Go ahead, Seth.
Nobody cares about your fantasy team.
All right. Sean Murphy's on my fantasy team because of his numbers, and he is the best catcher in baseball.
Yeah. No, obviously I agree. So my outfield, I'm just going to give them all three because we're running a little long, and I don't know if Mike Jones has some commitments later on today. I think he does. Ronald Acuna is one of my choices. He's hitting over 300. This guy's a superstar, and he's playing like it. Nick Castellanos is my other choice. Again, hitting over 300 for the Phillies, having a great season. And I'm going to go kind of maybe off the wall. Maybe I'm going.
See what you did there.
Yeah. Maybe I'm going, a little bit contrarian. Maybe people don't know who this guy is. Sort of like the Cincinnati pick. But this guy's played in 60 games, and he has 244 plate appearances. And that's Corbin Carroll for the Arizona Diamondbacks. I mean, he's hitting really well. And I haven't watched a ton of Diamondbacks games, but he seems to be, 22 years old, almost 23. He seems to be a part of this Diamondbacks team that looks to be kind of turning the corner. I mean, they're in first place as we speak today on June 10th. They're in first place in the NL West, and it's because of players like Corbin Carroll, who are playing really well. So I'm gonna go. I think he deserves it. So I like the obvious choice. A lot of people are gonna vote for Mookie Betts, and I get it. He plays for the Dodgers, but Mookie Betts is not having the season that Corbin Carroll's having. All right.
All right.
There you go.
So I just want to go on record as saying that on the show sheet, your ballot states Mookie Betts is your selection. Your screenshot of your ballot states that Mookie Betts is your selection. So you must be changed in midstream. And
I changed it.
I love it. All right. My guys, same as yours. Ronald Acuna, Nick Castellanos, who is having a year, man. He used to be a Cub. We wanted to extend him. I would love to still have Nick Castellanos on our roster, obviously. And then my final outfielder is one who is, I think he's been injured. I don't think he's on the IL or anything like that right now. I think there's a chance of him coming back. And that's Lourdes Gurriel Jr., Cuban player, having a year. This guy can hit the baseball. Don't have the stats sitting right in front of me, but Lourdes Gurriel is my pick in the outfield over Mookie Betts and whatever that other guy's name is that you mentioned from Arizona.
Yeah, Corbin Carroll. So there is a controversy in this whole process because for DH, I can vote for Joey Votto. I can vote for Matt Carpenter, who's hitting under 200. I can vote for Alec Burleson. I can vote for, but I can't vote for Nolan Gorman. So I'm writing in Nolan Gorman for DH because he's having a breakout season at 23 years old, and his approach is amazing. Like his whole approach, how he's changed it this season, hitting wise, has been remarkable to watch as a Cardinals fan. I think he deserves it. The other choice, if I can't choose Nolan Gorman, would be JD Martinez. I think there's just a little bit more versatility from a Nolan Gorman. That's the tiebreaker. Nolan Gorman can play second. He can play third. So anyway, that's my choice. Nolan Gorman.
All right. And for me, by the way, I don't know if this is true or not 100%. I'll have to check this when I make my 5 votes for the All-Star game tomorrow. You can vote 5 times a day, by the way. But there's the write-in candidate that you're doing here for DH. I think you can do that in every position. I don't know if you can do that on your phone, but but looking at my computer, you can do it on your computer. So I'll have to check into that. So my guy for DH is, I'm going with the Dodgers. JD Martinez is having a year, batting .275 with 15 home runs, 44 RBIs, and a .938 OPS. Which Martinez, the dude can play. Bottom line.
All right. I don't think. Why don't we just do National League only? Maybe next week we can do American League. Does that sound good?
Absolutely.
I think we, real quick, we can combine this last segment into the dictionary segment. So, Mike? Why don't we end the show with the favorite memory, and then we'll get out of here? Why don't we do the dictionary segment now? Does that sound good?
That's fine. You're good.
All right. I'm gonna do the jingle. It's the Dixon's Baseball Dictionary segment of the show where Mike pulls out his dictionary.
Yes, sir. The Paul Dixon Baseball Dictionary, 3rd edition. Got it right here. Excellent. So, hey, first one, I kind of going backwards. Sometimes we kind of tried to progress alphabetically through, but sometimes you have a thing that comes to your mind. Where does the term crooked number come from? And what does it mean? I thought that would be an interesting topic for our show today and for our listeners. Crooked number. You've heard people say that. Put a crooked number up on the board. Well, what does it mean exactly? Well, a crooked number according to Paul Dixon's Baseball Dictionary, is any number greater than 1 and less than 10. They're crooked, right? In reference to the lack of straight lines for those numbers 2 through 9. First use, this one surprised me. The first use of this term, according to Paul Dixon's Baseball Dictionary, was in 1993. 1993. All of this profligate hitting and high scoring, what Tony La Russa calls crooked numbers by the two teams. And it was said during the World Series that year. Roger Angle in the New Yorker, November 22nd, 1993, page 92. Crooked numbers.
Invented by Tony La Russa, apparently.
Apparently. I had no idea that, right? And I would have thought that term would have been around a lot longer than that. But that was the first use, apparently, that Paul Dixon could find of the term crooked number. It really means a high-scoring game, right? Because, 7, 8, 9, all that, which is interesting because they're all crooked after that.
Yeah, there's a lot of crooked. I didn't know there was so many crooked. There's like 5 words. A crooked arm is an uncomplimentary reference to a left-handed pitcher.
Yeah.
He's got one of those crooked arms, even though the left arm is the same as the right arm. It's just on the left side of your body. So I don't know.
Yeah, but it's more crookeder.
Okay.
Lefties are, it's just crooked.
A crook, like I think of like a burglar, like a robber. A curveball is a crook is a curveball. Parkins yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'd have thought that would have referred to like a base stealer. He's a crook.
Oh yeah. I agree. Parkins was the only pitcher in the lot who curved the ball, and he had a few of the boys performing contortionist tricks trying to follow the course of his crooks. That's from 1913 in the San Francisco Bulletin. This book's amazing.
It is, isn't it?
A few of the boys were performing contortionist tricks trying to follow the course of his crooks.
That's awesome. Just awesome.
Crooked pitch is the curveball. A crookie is Dizzy Dean's term for the curveball.
Ooh, he threw him the crookie. I like it. Now, apparently, to get into the Paul Dixon's Baseball Dictionary, it has to be a writer thing, right? So it's got to be written because obviously he's done research to, look into different articles and where these terms, can you imagine the research that went into this? But I think that maybe somebody needs to write into an article that, when somebody stole a base, he was a real crook because you could get into the dictionary maybe that way. Maybe that's how I'll get into the dictionary.
Mike is just trying to get into the dictionary. That's all he's trying to do.
My goal, man. It's my goal. All right. That's the dictionary segment.
All right, Mike, what's real quick before we end the show? This will be a good way to end the show, actually. Kind of a nice, pleasant walk down memory lane. Like, what to you, and I would encourage anybody, by the way, like the video, subscribe to the channel. We are growing. I think we have like 220 some subscribers, so we can't thank you enough for doing that, for joining us, for tuning in to our crazy show. It's kind of unbelievable. Like, I know Mike and I didn't start this because we're interested in gaining a social media following or become like we did this because we were doing it anyway over the phone. So we just decided why not do it and see if people are interested. And it turns out that some people are interested, and we are humbled and grateful for all of you who tune in and watch and comment and subscribe and all that stuff. So we really appreciate you guys. Tip of the cap. I can't do it because I got my headphones on. They fling the headphones, but I'm tipping my cap to you. And Mike Jones did it for the podcast listeners, and you can download the podcast. So go do that. The link is in the description. But I thought a nice walk down memory lane, and anybody can comment one of their first earliest memories of baseball and why and how that had an impact on you becoming a baseball fan like you are today, Mike Jones.
Yeah, so for me, the earliest baseball memory that I have, and it's one that pops into my head from time to time, is playing the hot corner in Little League in Vermillion, South Dakota. And I don't know why this pops into my head. I just remember what I remember from it was, one, being at some level horrified that one of those screaming baseballs was going to come my direction. And then also the satisfaction that came from fielding that first screaming baseball that came in my direction, playing the hot corner. I don't know. It's a real strong sense of, it was a beautiful day and we're on the Little League field, and all of the emotions and the feelings that went along with it. And then probably, right after that, I think any boy really, just memories of having a catch with dad in the front yard,
Yeah.
No pressure, just having a catch. And so those are the things.
Yeah.
Those are mine.
Yeah, that's like the scene in Field of Dreams that gets me every time. It's like, anyway.
There's a reason for that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, man. I think like, if you want to go back to the earliest memory for me, it's like I don't know if this is an accurate memory. It's really hard to, but when I tell people, literally I'll say because some people ask me, well, why are you a Cardinals fan? And I'll say, well, some of my earliest memories are like being in the bathtub as a kid and the Cardinals game is on, and it's Jack Buck and it's Mike Shannon, and Jack Buck is, doing Jack Buck, like with the deep voice, telling you in this magical way, somehow just putting this image in the mind of the listener of exactly what's happening on the baseball field. And it's like him, people like Vin Scully, there's countless, Mike Shannon too, and Pat Hughes, and all these guys are, it's a gift. It's like, I don't know how else to describe it, but yeah, like when I tell people, that's some of my earliest memories, because my mom would have the game on, my dad would be listening to the game in the car, and my mom and dad were both big St. Louis Cardinals fans. That's how it all started, because that's who my parents liked, and that's who my whole family were Cardinals fans. Like, not just any run-of-the-mill fans. Like, my grandpa watched the game every day. Like, if there was a Cardinals game on, my grandpa was watching the game, and my grandma too, and my mom and dad listened to as many games as they could. And that's how it happened. Like I just remember being in the bathtub as a little kid. This might be like my earliest memory, and like I said, I don't know how accurate it is, but it's just like, I remember it. Like, I didn't know who it was at the time, but now I look back, oh, that was Jack Buck is who it was.
Right.
It must have, like, if I was listening to Cardinals baseball at that time, it was Jack Buck and it was Mike Shannon. So, and as far as like a memory of me playing baseball, I remember I hit one home run in high school baseball, and when you hit a home run, I don't know if, like, some people I guess know when they hit a home run, like, it's just the smoothest feeling that you can experience hitting a baseball. It's like you hit it so perfectly, and it just goes forever, and it's just it's probably why some people like golf. I don't know. You just hit a ball and it just goes. But the difference between golf and baseball is, in golf it's sitting on a tee for you, and in baseball it can curve, it can bend, it could be a crook, it could be a crookie, right? It could be it could be a slider, it could be a changeup, it could be a fastball. It's coming at you 90 plus miles an hour in the big leagues, and you don't know where it's going to be or how fast it's going to come at you. So it's the most satisfying thing I've ever experienced playing sports, is being able to hit a baseball. Because that's probably because that's what I was best at. And I still believe to this day it's the hardest thing to do in professional sports is to hit a baseball. That's why I'm so blown away by guys who can do that on a consistent basis, like the Freddie Freemans of the world, the Luis Arezes of the world, the Paul Goldschmidts, the Dansby Swansons. So those are some of my earliest memories of baseball. And I think that's a good place to end the show. Leave us a comment. When did you fall in love with baseball? What are some of your earliest memories of baseball? And until next time, and I will reply to those comments. I haven't been doing a good job of that, but I will reply to those comments when and if you leave them. So we thank you for tuning in. Long live baseball. Go Cardinals.
Let's go Cubbies.
And we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.
Long live baseball.
Thank you.
Hey, long live baseball,
Long
baby.
live baseball. Let's go.
Long live baseball. Thank you.
You got it.
Right now.
Long live baseball.